If you want to find a lot of what we're talking about, here is the page on Facebook. And I kind of always like to throw this here as a starter, maybe put a smile on your face, because from here it kind of goes downhill. I'm sorry. So, but what I did was, based on that information, I sent my teacher, my daughter's teacher, an email. At the bottom it said, I'm the father of your student. How long will you be studying Islam, and how much time will be dedicated to studying Christianity? If you go up to the top, she says, the state of Tennessee requires all world history teachers to cover 10 standards or up to 4 weeks of Islam. She says, there is not a unit of study for Christianity. I wrote back at the bottom, since this is issued by the state of Tennessee, is this part of Common Core curriculum that you must teach Islam? Back at the top, she says, good morning, the entire world history curriculum is solely issued by the state of Tennessee. Common Core is not involved. But this time, I'm just starting to learn about Common Core myself. So, she sends me a link. And in this link is the pacing guide. Now, I didn't ask for this. I did not request this. I did not go out and Google this. This was sent to me at the direction of the principal to the teacher, just to, I guess, ease my mind. Here's the email sent to me with the attachment. Now, here's where I first started scratching my head. There's the pacing guide. It says, 7th grade Common Core Social Studies Pacing Guide. Well, if it's not Common Core, why does it say Common Core? I've had everybody and their brother to try to explain that to me, including the principal. Now, we'll get into Common Core in just a minute. I know it's English language arts. I know it's math. It's not, social studies and science. That's the literacy or literary part of it. But I want you to know something here. Roman Empire, 2 standards. That's not 2 weeks, that's 2 standards. Islamic world, up to 4 weeks. They give 3 weeks to Africa, 3 weeks to China, 2 weeks to Japan, and of course 4 weeks to Europe. I just have a hard time thinking 4 weeks of Islam is kind of excessive in my book. So I went to the Common Core State Standards website, and if you click on the state of Tennessee, it will take you to TN Core, which is the state of Tennessee's Common Core, if you will, directive webpage to find your curriculum and your standards and so forth. At the bottom of that page, I want you to notice what it says. Copyright TN Core, Common Core Standards. Guess what? It doesn't say that anymore. Since I've been making this presentation, and I have met with a lot of state representatives, Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey, he lives 10 minutes from me. I've had meeting after meeting, we've talked, we've been on the radio together. Guess what it says now? It says the Tennessee Department of Education. Why did it get changed? Go check it yourself. It says the Tennessee Department of Education. It doesn't say Tennessee Common Core Standards. If you click on the social studies content, it will actually show you what the standards are that should be taught across the state of Tennessee. It says, of course, the Roman Empire, but then it's the Islamic world 400 AD to 1500. Now here's where everybody jumps on the bandwagon. It's not Common Core, it's not Common Core. They haven't even written the standards for it yet. I understand English, language, arts, literacy, and social studies, and science. But we're going to look a little deeper into that here in just a moment. First I want us, and a lot of you know this, but for those of you who don't, let's kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. Bill Gates has invested $200 million to get Common Core started. We always hear this all the time, follow the money, follow the money. Well, let's follow a little bit of the money. It says that the Gates and Pearson partners have hooked up to reap tens of millions from Common Core. Now, I get this all the time. Bill Gates don't need the money. He's got more money than he knows what to do with. That's a very good point, because I think there's an ulterior motive behind doing this. It's not all about the money. And if you know anything about Common Core, you'll find out that a lot of the majority of the textbooks that were approved for Common Core, you know who they approved them through? Pearson Publishing. And we're going to look at Pearson very deeply here in just a moment. So when I had my meeting there in Bristol, they sent this guy by the name of Jared Bingham from Tennessee SCORE down there. And man, he tried to diffuse this situation left and right. Oh, this is this, that, this is positive, and that's positive. Let's look at this, and let's look at that. So I got to looking into Tennessee Score. Guess what? They've taken $2.8 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. What's he going to show up and say about Common Core? You're taking money from the man that's funding it. $2.8 million. Then, the governor, I guess a lot of you know that here not too long ago, he took a website, and a lot of people can go in and you can give your opinion about what you think about Common Core. And he's supposed to give this independent, nonprofit, nonpartisan organization the rights to go and collect this data, and they're going to bring it back to a committee or to whomever. And that's the SREB, the Southern Region Education Board. So I noticed this article here that the Tennessean had picked up on this. It says, an independent resources to collect the data from the website in the spring before turning information over to be reviewed and analyzed by the committees. I started looking up SREB. Guess what? They've taken $12 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, let me ask you a question. How are you independent, third party, how can you legitimately give me the information that I need in a nonpartisan way when you're taking $12 million from the man that's actually funding Common Core? Ask yourself that question. Looked a little further into SREB. Look who's on the board of directors in Tennessee. The governor. That's the facts. The governor's on the board. He's pro Common Core. They've taken $12 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the one that's very funding Common Core itself. This is something new that I found. Jeb Bush's education reform. It says, this past week, possible GOP 2016 presidential contender Jeb Bush doubled down on his support for Common Core standards, stating that he had lost patience with them, the conservative critics, and telling them they were not needed by moderate Republicans to win the White House. Additionally, Bush has joined with Conservatives for Higher Standards. Supporters are Senator Lamar Alexander, Tennessee, and Tennessee's Governor Bill Haslam. So why does that matter? How does that pertain to what we're doing in Tennessee? Well, Jeb Bush founded an organization called the Foundation for Excellence in Education. Well, sad to say, I looked into that one too. They've taken almost $5.5 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Follow the money. All right. Started just looking general Common Core stuff up in the state of Tennessee. Come across this as well. See that CMS at the end of that website says Social Studies CMS? That stands for Cleveland Middle Schools, Cleveland, Tennessee. It says a middle school Common Core curriculum guide, online resources for social studies and teachers. It's not Common Core, but I guess Cleveland Middle School got it wrong too. If you click on 7th grade, it's exactly the same curriculum. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, it says excerpts from many of the primary sources highlighted in the Common Core curriculum. That's off the Islamic page. So, I told you a moment ago about Pearson. Pearson is the one that's writing the textbooks. Now, you need to understand something. In my area, in Bristol, we don't have textbooks anymore. They came in, and there's 600 students in my daughter's middle school. They gave every one of them over 600 of them Dell laptops. And conveniently, guess who the operating system is on those laptops? Microsoft. Who owns Microsoft? Bill Gates. Okay? Start looking at all this. It all makes sense when you look at it. I tried every way in the world to try to find out who in the world had these textbooks because I didn't have access to them. I couldn't pick it up. I couldn't touch it. I couldn't read it. After very much research, I spent $300. I had to buy them. Here's your Pearson book that's being used in my area. And I'm not saying they're being used here. You have to research that for yourself. Here's the Pearson book. Here's the McGraw-Hill book. We're going to look at these in just a moment. So, Pearson. Who owns some stock in Pearson? This is from the New York Times. It says, Libya's hidden wealth may be the next battle. With a sizable pot of cash ready at stakes and a few elite European companies, including the British publisher Pearson. If you go down, it says the founder is Saif al-Islam al-Qaddafi. You know what his name translates into? The Sword of Islam. How much money does he have invested in Pearson? $453 million. They are producing the textbooks that are being put in front of our children. Should that concern you? You'll see so in just a moment. This talks about how much money that they're making off of testing and so forth. Bradley County News. It says, Common Core Libya owned Pearson at the core of Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam's Islamic policies in our state. In the last few years, we have seen a movement in our country to nationalize our education system. That's a problem. Why do we need the government to tell us how to run our education system in Tennessee? I believe there's enough cognitive, smart enough, educated people, hopefully in Nashville, that we can handle that in-house. We don't need Washington telling us how to do that. Anyhow, to implement Common Core in all our schools, at the bottom it says the LIA, Libya Investment Authority, and 5 members of Gaddafi's family own stock. With a Pearson portfolio this huge, it surely carries great influence on the content inside its books and our elected leaders. You're going to see these names a lot coming up. In the Middle East, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, CARE, and the Muslim Brotherhood have invested heavily in Pearson education and K-12 learning vehicles. Why? Why would they do that? We're going to look at it in just a moment. The article continues. It's even been reported by Bill Karaj that Pearson owners are deeply involved in the Muslim Brotherhood and linked to CARE. The Muslim Brotherhood document seized by the FBI and presented at the Holy Land Foundation trial in Texas revealed a plan by the Muslim Brotherhood and their subsidiary organizations like CARE, look at this, to penetrate and indoctrinate American K-12 students. I'm going to show it to you in just a moment. Key Pearson textbook consultants on Islam, Susan Douglas, remember that name, and Shabir Mansouri have both been connected to the Muslim Brotherhood and voiced strong support of the Islamic madrasa, Islamic schools where hate for Jews and Christians are a daily lesson. I started looking for Shabir Mansouri, couldn't find anything in my daughter's curriculum as far as he goes. Started looking for Susan Douglas. Wait till you see what I found. Here's a little bio on Susan Douglas. It says an independent review agency affirms that CIE, that's the Council on Islamic Education, deceptively renamed in 2006 as the Institute on Religious and Civic Values. It says for advancing change in school and standards and curricula, the CIE can largely thank Muslim convert Susan Douglas, who for 10 years wrote for the CIE lesson plans, the advisory guidelines, and pamphlets. Look at the bottom. The CIE, the Council on Islamic Education, is a bedfellow with the Muslim Brotherhood. So I started going through my daughter's curriculum. Does her name show up anywhere in any sourcing, in any resourcing? Let's look just a little bit further, and I'll show you what I found. It says, Susan Douglas were retained by Pearson and consultants to review the material in the world history books. Both Mansouri and Douglas are associated with the Council on Islamic Education, which the report card describes as a front for the Muslim Brotherhood in America. In addition, the efforts by the CIE, the Council on Islamic Relations, there's CARE again, is engaged in infiltrating the U.S. public school system. While the CIE is linked to the Muslim Brotherhood, CARE has ties to terrorist groups, Hamas. CARE has been accused of distributing misleading and biased information regarding Islam. When I read this next paragraph, this took me aback. Dave Gabatz has uncovered evidence of CARE's role in the subversion of America's schools. Gabatz reports that while interrogating terrorists in Iraq, he was repeatedly told, "We will attack the heart of America." When Gabatz asked for an elaboration, he was told, "We will attack the children who are the heart of America." CARE has been doing this with textbooks and schools. You say, no, they haven't. By the way, who's Dave Gabatz? He is the author of Muslim Mafia. He spent 20 years as an active duty USAF special agent, 3.5 years as a civilian federal agent. He was trained by the U.S. State Department in Arabic and was the first federal agent to enter Iraq in 2003. That's where he interrogated the terrorist staff and those guys over there. And they said, we're coming after America, and we're going to get to you through your children. He's also a counterterrorism and counterintelligence officer. So I went back, this is part of the curriculum for my daughter. I went back and I was looking at Student Handout 2.2, my daughter's curriculum. Look who they're sourcing. Susan Douglas. She's already in our schools. She's in my school. I continue to look a little further. At the top it says, The Rise of Islam, 600 through 1000. Council on Islamic Education, teaching about Islam and Muslims in the public schools classroom. Susan Douglas. She's connected to the Muslim Brotherhood. Been writing for the CIA for 10 years, and her name's in my daughter's curriculum. Would that concern you if you found that? See why I'm concerned? And it's only going to get worse. Here's the connection with CARE and Hamas. This isn't the Holy Land Foundation. It says, CARE was founded in part with donations from the Holy Land Foundation for relief and development, HLF. Essentially, that's Hamas. Now, if you know anything about what Hamas is doing, you know how they're terrorizing the people of Israel. I mean, they're constantly shooting bombs and missiles and all this kind of stuff. And then, whenever Israel defends itself, well, they're chastised for it. Why? I said this last night in my meeting. If you had a gun in your house, and yes, I'm Second Amendment pro-gun. If you have a gun in your house and somebody's got an AK-47 and they're rushing you at your house, are you going to leave your gun in the corner, or are you going to pull it out and try to defend your property? But when Israel does that, they're vilified for it. Well, what happened was, the question was asked at this trial, third paragraph at the bottom, did they, the HLF, give you money to help start CARE? He responded unequivocally, no. The question was asked again, the very bottom. It says, Executive Director Awad also denied that CARE had ever received money from the HLF, declaring our organization did not receive any seed money from the HLF. There's the check. They did. They took money from a terrorist organization to start in the United States. You know what you're going to find in a minute? You're going to find that in my school, they are sourcing CARE and using it as part of the curriculum to teach our children. A terrorist organization. It says, when investigative project Matthew Epstein produced a copy of the check at the Senate hearing, however, Awad had no choice but to admit, yeah, we took that money that we unequivocally did not take. Reuters. The UAE, the United Arab Emirates, lists the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist group. The United Arab Emirates has formally designated the Muslim Brotherhood and its local affiliates as terrorist groups. News 5. United Arab Emirates names CARE, Muslim American Society, terrorist organization. The Council on American-Islamic Relations as a Muslim American Society have been designated terrorist organizations by the United Arab Emirates. Look at the bottom. CARE called its listing shocking and bizarre. I guess the same way that they unequivocally did not take money, right? And demanded the UAE remove them from the list. This is the Catholic Church. Even they're concerned. This is from the CatholicTradition.org. It says, Common Core and CARE, why should you care? You can say without exaggeration that CARE is the media's Common Core. Now, CARE is the acronym for the Council on American and Islamic Relations. It's the face of Islam to the public. CARE has strong ties with Muslim Brotherhood. It says, I cannot prove it right now. I can. That CARE has a hand in Common Core principles, certainly at the present. The American government schools are pro-Islamic and anti-Christian. Very important for CARE. Daily roll call. U.S. schools adopting Muslim Common Core standard ideas. Should have known all across the U.S. the push for Common Core state standards is on. And guess who's behind the push? The Muslim Brotherhood's #1 front organization, the ISNA, Islamic Society of North America. You say, why does that matter? They're in the White House. February 8th, 2015. The Obama White House finally released the names of 14 Muslim leaders who met with the president this past week. As previously uncovered by Breitbart News, the White House confirmed that Azhar Aziz, president of the Islamic Society of North America, was one of the Muslim leaders that met with President Obama. I want to meet with Netanyahu of Israel, but I'll meet with him. Ask yourself a question, why? Huffington Post. Now, if you know anything about the Huffington Post, they're left. There's no right to the Huffington Post. When I come across this article, I've said this before, I had to get up, walk away, come back and reread it to make sure I was reading what I thought I read. It says, Pearson Education, who are these people? Now we're getting back to the textbook. According to a recent article on Reuters, an international news service based in Great Britain, investors of all stripes are beginning to sense big profits in the public education. Pearson, a British multinational conglomerate, is one of the largest private businesses moving for U.S. dollars. Starting in May 2014, Pearson Education will take over teachers' certification in New York State as a way of fulfilling the state's promised reforms in its application for federal race to the top money. Now, he goes on to say this. The question that must be addressed is whether the British publishing giant Pearson and its Pearson Education subsidy should be determined who is qualified to teach and what should be taught in New York State and the United States. Look at this next line. I don't think so, he says. Not only did no one elect them, but when people learn who they are, they might not want them anywhere near the school. When people learn who Pearson are, they might not want them anywhere near school. They're already in our schools. They're in my daughter's. And that's the Huffington Post. That's not Fox News. U.S. News and World Report. New York teachers withdraw Common Core support, declare no confidence. The Board of New York Teachers Union on Saturday unanimously voted to withdraw its support for Common Core state standards as they are being implemented and declare no confidence in the state's education commissioner. New York doesn't even want it. Why do we want it? I mean, we're Tennesseans. Our values are a little different than New York. And if New York doesn't want this mess, why in this world would we want it? How many of you saw this past week? I think it was New Mexico. All those kids walked out because of the testing. We hadn't even got that far yet. The kids are walking out by the hundreds. I seen this past week a news article where one of the head teachers, I think she was voted like Teacher of the Year or something, resigned because of Common Core. This past week. Think it's just in Tennessee? Common Core Islamic Indoctrination textbook has Floridians outraged. Common Core Islamic indoctrination of students in American schools is overt. This is the goal of Volusia County, Florida, where hundreds are protesting the ode to Islam that is world history. There's Florida. Let's go to Maryland. Former Marine banned from daughter's school after dispute over Islam lesson. Let's go to Michigan. Mother stunned at her daughter's class assignment in Islam. Look at the bottom. It says they were studying religions worship the Muslim God Allah. It also stated that Allah is the one and only God. My daughter was showed the exact same thing. Let's go to Massachusetts. Angry dad points his son from Massachusetts elementary school over pro-Allah text. Among the text, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. North Carolina. Upset mom finds herself contacting the news after reading the answer on her son's Islam worksheet. You see a pattern developing here? You say, well, you're just fear-mongering. You're just blowing this thing out of proportion. Look at this letter that was written. How many of you have seen this letter? Any of you seen this letter? MuslimMatters.org. Muhammad Sakuri Hassan of AMAC wrote this letter to the president about Tennessee. Dear Mr. President, Tennessee is home to some of the nation's most active anti-Muslim organizations, many of which have been designated by the Southern Poverty Law Center as hate groups. The people who lead these organizations distort and pervert the exact same way that terrorist organizations like ISIS do. Take, for example, the ongoing effort to rewrite children's textbooks. Not only did the people behind this effort wish to remove any